The newly confirmed Chief Administrative Officer for the city of Shreveport, Mr. Henry Whitehorn, is here. Hey, Miss,
I keep calling him Chief.
I want to call it. Is
yeah.
Chief okay? Hey, Chief, how you doing this morning?
Chief is fine. I'm doing well, Robert. Thank you.
Let's start here because this is something that Aaron and we go back and forth on, and you can straighten it out for us. Aaron said, my first thought was that the mayor had said we will be $25 million short by the end of April. She said, no, the mayor said we would be 25.
I thought it was fiscal year, yeah.
Which of those is it? Is it the end of this month or is it the end of the fiscal year?
It's the end of the calendar year, actually, if we continue the stay-home order through the end of April.
Okay. So if we get back to work in May, we could still just be looking at $25 million for the end of the year.
Around that.
Okay.
That's correct.
You know,
but
you're
if we go through May, or June, that numbers rises significantly.
Chief, gosh, God, I've known you for a long time. We haven't seen each other or talked in a long time, but your reputation is impeccable. You have gone through HE double hockey sticks to get this appointment, including a meeting where council members walked out. What happened? Where did this go haywire?
Pardon me. Let me ask the question. Did you really go through hell in your mind, or were you just business as usual? This is the job that I have been asked to do, and did all of this really was it water off your back?
Well, I'm a public servant. I've been a public servant for roughly 40-something years, and so I've been through these processes before, and I just kept doing the job I've been asked to do it to the best of my ability, and try not to worry about the political side of it. I'm honored and humbled to be able to serve in this capacity, and I'm glad that process is over, where we can move forward with trying to move Shreveport to where we all know it should be and can be.
Chief, we heard it discussed in the February meeting, and we heard it discussed in cloakrooms, etc., about your connection to Lynn Braggs. Is that really a big deal as everybody has made it out to be? He's a friend of yours. Is he going to have any influence on you at all?
No. We've been friends for a long time, and I make decisions in the best interest of the service that I'm asked to do. And that's the way I've always operated, doing the right thing the right way for the right reasons. And as long as I'm true to that, I don't worry about what's been said. Lynn and I have been friends for roughly 25 years, and there's never been an occasion where he and I have had to cross paths where I was asked to do something or encouraged to do something that was illegal, immoral, or unethical. And so I don't expect that to change. My reputation speaks for itself. Lynn knows me, and he knows what I'm about, and we don't have those type conversations.
Mr. Henry, I'm sure there have been numerous meetings of late between the mayor, you, Ms. Sharika, and department heads from everybody. Sort of having tentative plans for laying out the next 30, 60, 90 days to run the city. Do you have a date in mind as you are looking down the line for when hopefully things will be back up and back to as normal as possible?
We've been discussing recovery. We're going through response mode right now, but we are looking ahead toward recovery. It's difficult to say whether it'll be 30 days or 60 days. We'd like for it to happen sooner than later, of course, but we are preparing and looking at things that we need to do once the stay-home order is lifted.
What's your message to department heads? Are you looking at across-the-board cuts? Are you looking at service cuts? You can't cut $25 million, I wouldn't imagine, without some folks losing their jobs. Is that realistic?
It is realistic, and we are looking across the board. It won't impact not one single department by itself. So we're looking across the board at what we have to do. hopefully we won't get into the personnel piece of it. That's our last resort. But we're looking at ways we can trim dollars. We're hoping that we can maybe get some relief either from the federal government or some of our local partners to bridge the gap. But we're also looking at ways that we can trim our expenditures. We're looking at ways that, anything that we can do to avoid layoffs. It may reach that, but at this point, we're hoping that'll be our last resort.
Mr. Henry, when we talked to Ms. Sharika last week, she said that the possibility of a bond proposal to maybe float a little cash to get us through the tough times. She said that was not off the table. Any new details there? Has that come up? What info can you give us?
No, we're leaning forward on that to have that piece in our toolbox if we need it. We really don't want to have to do that because, that's something that you got to pay back if you reach out and borrow that money. And so we're looking at other avenues, but we are leaning forward to have that in the toolbox in case we need it.
Is there, and I certainly wouldn't know this, maybe you would, since there are so many municipalities and or communities across the country in sort of these dire straits, looking at funding shortages, if you propose another bond issue, does the current situation nationwide make it more difficult to get money, to borrow money, or because would it be more readily available at a lower rate than normal?
That I can't answer. I'm not sure if it would be readily available at a lower rate. And that's not really where we want to go. The bond is not necessarily a bond proposal that we would be looking at. We'd be looking at some type of short-term loan, maybe. And hopefully with this new initiative up in D.C., we'll get some funding from the federal government that will reach to the cities our size. The last proposal and the last money that was stimulus package that came out left us short due to our population size.
Let's talk about the sanitation problem that's been going on. 39 workers called in sick Monday. Some of them have reached out to me and to other reporters to say it's a sick out. They're not happy with the conditions and their safety is in jeopardy. How do you see it? How do you read it? Is it a sick out? Is it a walkout? Or is it just we had a lot of people sick Monday? What's going on?
On a normal weekday, we have many employees that call in sick, but we're very proud of the work that our sanitation workers are doing. We've been working with them to make sure that we provided the proper PPE, personal protection equipment, to help them maintain that safety that we know is important to them. Those folks are working hard every day, doing a job that many of us may not want to do. We know that some are asking for the hazardous duty pay. We've looked at ways to try to accomplish that, but we're in a fiscal posture right now that's nearly impossible to provide that now. At some point, maybe down the road, we can look at some ways to help those workers out. But, they're working hard. We've got a lot of folks out there that's working hard every day. We have our first responders. We've got the water and sewer department. We've got many employees across different departments that are working in these conditions, not necessarily the same as the sanitation workers, but they're working every day just as hard. And so we're proud of all the work that our city employees are doing during these troubling times. We're in crisis mode, and there are things that we have to do when there's a crisis.
Mr. Henry, pardon me, according to you, in the mayor's mind, in your mind, was it an actual sick out, kind of a walkout, or was it just, wow, we had a lot of people not feeling good on one particular day? How are you guys looking at that?
No, I don't believe there's a sick out going on with our sanitation workers. You know, after a weekend, we normally have a few that are call in sick, and we haven't really seen an uptick on that. I mean, this is kind of normal operations that we have here.